"May I play for food?" asked a shy 12-year-old girl. Her small voice echoed through the lobby of the Continental Hotel, breaking the fancy conversations like a sharp sound. People stopped talking and stared at the little black girl who dared to interrupt the city's richest charity party. Amelia Washington stood at the entrance of the main hall. Her big, hopeful eyes were fixed on the shiny grand piano under the crystal lights. She wore simple, loose clothes that looked very different from the expensive dresses and suits around her. Holding her old backpack close to her chest, she stood, like she was protecting herself. "How did that child get in here?" whispered a woman with platinum hair, squeezing her champagne glass. "Where is security?" The event was a gala to raise money for poor children. Amelia felt the cruel irony. For the past week, she had been sleeping in different shelters. She had heard about the party when she passed the hotel, and something inside her told her to try to come in. Victoria Sterling, the event organizer, and a rich woman from a powerful family walked toward her slowly. At 45, she was the perfect image of the city's elite. Educated, polished, and certain she was better than others. "Sweetheart," she said with a fake smile, "this is not a place for you. There's a McDonald's 2 blocks away." "I just want to play," Amelia answered, her voice stronger now. "Just one song for a plate of food." The crowd laughed. "She thinks she can play the piano," mocked a man in a navy suit. "She probably doesn't even know which key is C." "These kids watch a movie and think they can do anything," said another woman, shaking her head with fake pity. But Amelia didn't look down. She stood tall, quiet, but with a strong dignity that seemed too big for a girl in her situation. Like she knew a secret no one else in the room did. At the back of the hall, Dr. Robert Chun, a famous pianist and judge in national competitions, watched carefully. He noticed how Amelia's eyes looked at the piano with deep respect, the kind he rarely saw even in his best students. There was recognition there. "Victoria," Dr. Chun said softly, "maybe we should let her play. After all, we're here to support young talent, aren't we?" Victoria laughed coldly. "Robert, look at her. Children like this never get music lessons. It's impossible." But none of them knew that Amelia had grown up with music. For her first 8 years, she lived in a home where music was as natural as breathing. Her grandmother, a skilled classical pianist who never got recognition because of her skin color, had been Amelia's only teacher. When her grandmother died and Amelia entered foster care, she carried both the sadness and a rare talent she didn't even fully understand. As people looked at her with scorn, Amelia stayed strong. She had already survived worse. Her fingers moved without thinking, as if playing an invisible song, something she always did to calm herself in hard times. This was the moment when a simple request from a hungry child was about to challenge prejudice and reveal a gift that could change how everyone in that room thought about human potential. Victoria Sterling crossed her arms and laughed loudly, as if Amelia had told the most ridiculous joke in the world. "Very well, dear," she said, her voice full of mockery. "Since you insist, let's make a deal. You may play, but under some conditions." The crowd leaned in, sensing a cruel show was about to begin. Victoria loved being the center of attention, especially when she could show her supposed superiority in front of the city's richest people. "First condition," Victoria said, holding up one perfect finger. "You will play only one song, and we will choose it. Second condition. If you play well enough, I will pay for a full dinner for you. But," she paused dramatically, "if you fail, as we all know you will, you must leave right away and never bother respectable people again." "That's cruel," whispered one older woman. But her voice was quickly lost in the laughter and approval of the other guests. Amelia stood still, her eyes locked on the piano. In her mind, memories mixed with the present. She could almost hear her grandmother Betty's gentle voice. "When people try to put you down, let the music speak, my dear. Music does not lie, and it knows no prejudice." "I accept," Amelia said firmly, her voice calm and clear. Dr. Chun watched closely. The girl's posture and her steady gaze at the instrument intrigued him deeply. After 30 years of judging pianists, he had learned to recognize real talent. Something about this child set off all his instincts. "Perfect!" Victoria clapped her hands. "Now, the music." She looked around, searching for the hardest, most humiliating piece. Her eyes landed on James Morrison, a bar pianist with only average skill. "James, what would be a good test for our young artist?" James smirked. "How about Beethoven's Für Elise? Everyone who has ever touched a piano tries it. If she knows anything at all, she should be able to play it." The crowd laughed. They knew Für Elise looked simple, but playing it perfectly required real skill and years of practice. It was a trap. If Amelia only knew a little, she would fail badly. If she knew nothing, she could not even start. "Excellent choice," Victoria applauded. "A song any child with piano lessons knows. No excuses for failure." Amelia nodded and walked toward the piano. Every step was filled with quiet determination, which made some guests at the back uneasy. Something felt wrong. A 12-year-old child should not carry herself with such dignity while facing humiliation. She sat at the piano and adjusted the bench with quick, practiced movements. Dr. Chun felt a chill. Those were not the actions of a beginner. "Look at her," Victoria sneered. "She doesn't even know how to sit. She's probably never seen a real piano in her life." But Dr. Chun noticed the opposite. Her posture was perfect. Her hands hovered above the keys in flawless classical position. These were details that took years to learn. Memories rushed through Amelia's mind. Her grandmother, Betty Washington, had been one of the first black pianists to try entering the city's conservatory in the 1960s. Her talent was great, but doors stayed closed because of racism. So Betty taught children in her community at home, turning her old piano into a gateway to music. "Music is the universal language, Amelia," Betty used to say, guiding her granddaughter's small hands. "If you play from the heart, people will listen with their souls, not just their eyes." Amelia had spent endless hours at that piano, learning not only technique but also deep musical wisdom. After Betty's death, when Amelia was placed in foster care, music remained her only comfort, played on imaginary pianos during lonely nights. "We're waiting," Victoria said impatiently, tapping her fingers. "Or have you given up already?" Amelia took a deep breath and placed her hands on the keys. The touch sent energy through her body. After months without a real piano, feeling the keys again was like finding a lost part of her soul. The first note rang out, pure and clear, making several guests look up in surprise. It was not the clumsy sound they expected. It was the sound of someone who truly knew the instrument. Dr. Chun moved closer, now completely focused. That single note had perfect technique, precise touch, steady, sustain, and full control. Only years of serious practice could create that. "Coincidence?" Victoria muttered, though her voice lacked its usual confidence. Amelia began to play Für Elise. Every note flowed smoothly without mistakes, as if the piano and girl were one. But it wasn't only the technique. It was the emotion, the way she shaped the melody, the control of soft and loud, even the silences that spoke. This was not the work of a child who had just tried piano. It was the work of a true artist. The hall went completely silent. Glasses froze in midair. Conversations stopped. Even the waiters stood still. Everyone was transfixed by the small girl creating music of breathtaking beauty. Victoria felt her stomach twist. This was not the humiliation she had planned. The show was turning into something far beyond her control. As Amelia played, lost in the flow of music, one question filled every mind in the room. Who is this girl? And what secrets does her music hold? Dr. Chun's heart pounded. After 40 years of judging musicians, he knew What he was hearing went beyond logic. The girl's playing was not just good, it was amazing. A fast arpeggio section, difficult, even for advanced students, flowed from her hands as smoothly as water. Each note had purpose. Each pause carried emotion. Dr. Chun watched in awe as she used the pedal with the precision of a professional concert pianist. "This is impossible," he whispered, moving closer. Victoria noticed the change in the room. Everyone had gone silent, even the waiters. The hotel lobby had turned into a real concert hall. Trying to take back control, Victoria raised her voice. She must have memorized this song from some YouTube video. Kids copy everything online. But her words sounded weak. Amelia's playing was far beyond imitation. This was true interpretation, full of emotion and understanding that usually takes years of training and life experience. Dr. Chun had seen many prodigies, 5-year-olds playing Mozart, teenagers tackling Rachmaninoff, but rarely had he seen such perfect technique combined with deep musical maturity, especially in someone so young and from such hard circumstances. Amelia reached the high point of the piece, where the main melody returned stronger after the fast passages. Her hands flew across the keys with the ease of someone who had practiced for thousands of hours. This was not fake. It was real intimacy with the piano. Through the music, Amelia heard her grandmother Betty's voice. Music isn't just about playing notes. It's about telling your story. Betty Washington had been more than a teacher. Born in 1940, she lived in a time when black pianists were blocked from top conservatories and concert halls. Instead of giving up, she turned her home into a small school where community children could discover that classical music belonged to them too. "The world will try to tell you that some things aren't for people like us," Betty used to say, adjusting Amelia's hands on the piano. "But music knows no color, no poverty, no limits, only truth." For 8 years, Amelia absorbed not just piano skills but a philosophy of music. She learned that every composer had a language. Chopin spoke of longing, Beethoven of struggle and victory, Mozart of joy and light. And she learned that her own voice was just as valuable. When Betty died of a heart attack, Amelia lost not only her grandmother, but her whole world. The foster system took her away from the piano. For 4 long years, she played only in her imagination, on invisible keyboards in cold shelters. Now, in the grand hall of the Hotel Continental, it all returned. Every lesson, every gentle correction, every word of love flowed back into her hands as though no time had passed. Dr. Chun's eyes widened as Amelia reached the final part of the piece. She began softly, then grew into a majestic power, before fading back to a delicate whisper. This was the work of a mature artist, not a child. "Do you see this?" he whispered to a professor beside him. "This child is not just talented. She is a phenomenon." Victoria Sterling felt panic rise. What was meant to be a cruel humiliation had become the opposite. Instead of confirming prejudice, Amelia was forcing everyone to rethink what they believed about class, race, and talent. "This has to be a trick," Victoria muttered to her friends. She must have had expensive lessons somewhere. But even she knew her words were empty. The girl was showing a depth that money could not buy. She played with soul, with history, with pain and beauty born from life itself. Amelia finished the last notes of Fur-Elise with such delicacy that people held their breath. When the sound faded, she kept her hands hovering over the keys, not wanting to break the magic. Then she turned slowly to face the silent crowd. The shy girl who had begged for food was gone. In her place sat a young artist who had claimed her place in the world through music. Dr. Chun began to clap, slowly and with respect. His applause echoed like distant thunder. Others joined, until the hotel shook with genuine admiration. Victoria looked around in dread. The humiliation she had planned had become a celebration of the very talent she wanted to crush. And worse, she saw in the eyes of the guests a haunting question. If we were wrong about this child, what else are we wrong about? Amelia stayed, calm, letting the applause wash over her like rain after a long drought. Behind her eyes was no arrogance, only the realization of her own strength. She had made her point, but this was just the beginning. Dr. Chun stepped closer, his face glowing, with respect and curiosity. "Child," he said softly, "may I ask where you studied? Your teacher must be extraordinary." Amelia looked him straight in the eyes, and for a moment her pain showed. "My grandmother taught me," she said simply. "She told me music was the one thing no one could ever take from me." The answer hit Dr. Chun like lightning. Not an expensive school, not privilege, but family love and a gift carefully nurtured at home. Everything Dr. Chun believed about how musical excellence was created was being challenged by a 12-year-old girl who had just changed his idea of greatness. The hall still echoed with applause, but Amelia knew she had crossed a line. She was no longer just a hungry child asking for food. Her music had revealed something bigger, something that demanded more. Now, with all eyes fixed on her, she had to decide how much of herself she was ready to show. Dr. Chun walked toward the piano slowly, almost as if approaching something sacred. "Young lady," he said, his voice trembling, "I must ask you an important question. What is your full name?" "Amelia Washington," she answered calmly. The name struck him like lightning. His eyes widened. "Washington. Betty Washington. Are you Betty Washington's granddaughter?" Amelia nodded silently. Dr. Chun covered his face with his hands. "My God," he whispered. "Betty Washington was one of the greatest pianists this country ever had. She should have played at the best conservatories in the world." His voice broke with old pain. Victoria grew uneasy. "Robert, what are you talking about? Who is Betty Washington?" Dr. Chun turned to her, his face full of disbelief and disgust. "Victoria, Betty Washington was a legend, a true virtuoso who was shut out of conservatories and concert halls. Because of her skin color, she became one of the most respected private teachers in America. She trained dozens of professionals." The crowd began to murmur. Some recognized the name. Betty Washington was known in music circles as a teacher who could turn any serious student into a great artist. "But that was decades ago," Victoria argued, her voice defensive. "Even if that's true, this girl is still a homeless child, begging at a private event." At that, Amelia rose from the piano bench. For the first time, her true self appeared. The shy posture was gone. She stood with a dignity so strong that some people unconsciously stepped back. "Miss Sterling," Amelia said firmly, "you are right about one thing. I should not be here tonight." She paused, letting silence fill the air. "I should be at Carnegie Hall in New York, where I have a recital next week." The room froze. "My name is Amelia Washington," she continued. "I am the youngest pianist ever accepted into Juilliard's Young Artists program. I am also the current national champion of classical piano under 15. She paused again to let the words sink in. "And I am not here because I need food or money." Dr. Chun's eyes widened further as realization struck. "The documentary," he whispered. "You're making the documentary." Amelia nodded. "Exactly. I'm working with PBS on a documentary about prejudice and access to the arts. My producer asked me to attend charity events like this one, disguised as a poor child, to see how privileged people treat those they think are beneath them." Her words hit the room like a bomb. Victoria's face turned pale. You're filming us?" "Hidden cameras," Amelia confirmed calmly. "High-definition video and audio. Everything tonight has been recorded for national broadcast." Victoria spun around in panic, searching for cameras, hoping it was a prank. "That's illegal. You can't film us without permission." "Actually," Dr. Chun cut in with a dark smile, You signed image releases when you bought your tickets. It clearly said this event could be filmed for documentary purposes. I doubt anyone read the fine print. The crowd stirred in panic. Guests whispered urgently, some already pulling out their tickets to check. The tension in the room thickened. The first part of the documentary, Amelia continued, ignoring the chaos, will show how talent is ignored when it comes in a form that challenges privileged expectations. The second part will show how people who claim to defend the arts behave when real art comes from places they don't respect. I didn't create anything tonight. I simply revealed your true selves when you thought there were no consequences. Dr. Chun looked at Amelia with deep respect. May I ask, what will you do with this recording? The documentary will air nationally next month, Amelia explained, but I also have a YouTube channel where I post shorter videos of these social experiments. My latest video, filmed at a similar event in Boston, already has over 2.5 million views. People are especially interested when those who pretend to be kind are exposed as prejudiced. The crowd stared in horror as Victoria realized her fate. In just days, her cruelty would be seen by millions. Her name would forever be tied to elitism and hypocrisy. Mrs. Sterling, Amelia said firmly, you've spent this evening telling me people like me don't belong here, that we have no talent, no value, no place in high culture. Her voice grew stronger, filling the silent hall. Tomorrow, the world will see who you really are. Victoria opened her mouth, but no words came out. The weight of her coming humiliation was too much to bear. Dr. Chun scanned the panicked faces in the crowd. How many events have you filmed? This is the 12th, Amelia replied. And every time it's the same. People who claim to love art and education, but who immediately judge and reject talent based only on appearances. She turned back to Victoria. The difference between you and me, Mrs. Sterling, is that when I really was homeless after my grandmother died, I learned that dignity doesn't come from money or status. It comes from how we treat others when we think no one is watching. The silence was heavy. Everyone knew their behavior that night would be judged by millions, and most knew they had no defense. Amelia quietly collected a small recorder from her backpack. One question hung in the air. How many others had learned too late that the child they had despised had the power to show their true selves to the world? Victoria Sterling stood by the window of her small apartment and watched a limousine stop in front of Carnegie Hall. Amelia Washington stepped out in an elegant gown, smiling and waving to fans before entering for her debut as the youngest soloist of the season. The documentary Faces of Discrimination had gone viral, gaining over 15 million YouTube views. Victoria had become a national symbol of elitist hypocrisy, losing her place in every charity board and the respect of the high society she once ruled. Newspapers ran headlines for weeks. Former charity organizer exposed as prejudiced in viral documentary. Her luxury events company collapsed, and now she worked as an assistant at a small law firm, trying to rebuild a reputation that might never return. Meanwhile, Dr. Chun became Amelia's mentor, guiding her into the world of professional classical music. The Continental Hotel, ashamed of its role, created a scholarship program for poor young musicians and named Amelia as its ambassador. Music knows no color, no social class, no zip code, Amelia said in her first national interview. It only knows truth and passion. And when you have both, nothing can stop you. The impact of the documentary reached far beyond entertainment. Music schools launched outreach programs. Conservatories changed their admission rules. Hundreds of talented young people from poor communities were given opportunities once denied to them. Watching Amelia succeed where she had tried to humiliate her, Victoria finally understood the hardest lesson of her life. Dignity and talent cannot be bought, inherited, or judged by skin color or address. Amelia's best revenge was not to ruin Victoria, but to prove that true greatness always rises above prejudice, and that extraordinary gifts often come from the people least expected.